You're listening to Media Savvy Moms with Melody and Marilyn. Open, honest conversations about parenting and pornography. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Media Savvy Moms. Today, we are going to talk about children and teens and addiction. And we have a clinician on the show with us, Paul Lavergne. He's a registered psychotherapist and a certified sexual recovery therapist with the American Association of Sex Addiction Therapists. He maintains a private practice. He specializes in the treatment of compulsive sexual behaviors. And he speaks all over the place, delivering workshops and training intensives in Ontario. He's been on local TV, radio shows, published online, spoken at conferences and high schools, and he talks about the impact of porn culture and how modern technology intersects with love, sexuality, addiction, and relationships. So I'm going to pass it over to Marilyn to go ahead and conduct this interview with Paul.
Great. Welcome, Paul, and so glad to have you on the show. Paul and I met at a conference in Ottawa maybe a year and a half ago, and I was very intrigued by some of the things that he taught us at that conference. And as well, I was thrilled to know that there were other people in my community who were fighting pornography. And so glad to have you on the show today, Paul.
Thanks, Marilyn. Thanks for having me. And Melody, great to meet you guys again.
So we're going to just launch right into the questions. We've heard the saying porn is bad, or, a lot of parents will come to the table very nervous, porn is bad. And then we've also heard, on the other hand, that porn is like a drug. And I think that's why I wanted to reach out to you so much, is that you're coming at this from a clinical perspective, and you're a sex addictions therapist. So talk to us about that. Is porn bad? Is it like a drug? What do we need to know as parents?
Yeah, great question. A lot of people are calling addiction to porn the fastest growing addiction in the world, and it literally acts on your brain like a new drug. And in fact, there's a great organization called Fight the New Drug that I'm sure you've all heard of. And that's not an accidental choice of words. It really is like the new drug. Of course, pornography and sex have been around forever, but today's porn delivered through the internet is nothing like we've ever had to deal with before as a society and as a culture.
Okay.
So I know that most of the people listening to this, like you were telling me, are not, it's not like they're newbies or this is the first time they've learned that there's such a thing as online pornography, so there's a little bit of awareness and understanding of what's out there. But, I still run into people that think, we're talking about Playboy, And Playboy, they're not even going to be around in a few more years. Like, all of the magazines are going to be gone anyway. And Playboy is quaint, really, by comparison to what's found online. So to address the issue of is it an addiction? Yes, and I'll tell you why. Most people think that in order to be an addict, you have to ingest a substance into your body like drugs or alcohol. But there's actually two kinds of addictions: substance addictions and what we call process addictions. So the most common process addiction is gambling. So the gambling addict, is addicted to the process of thinking about going to the casino, planning the trip, driving there, going to their favorite craps table or slot machine, and engaging in the gambling behavior. And it feels compulsive to them, and it's obsessive to them.
Okay.
So pornography is, in a sense, both a process addiction and a substance addiction, but this substance is created by your own brain. So what I want the listeners today to understand is that when anybody, whether they're a child, a teen, or an adult, views sexually explicit material online, it instantly produces neurochemical changes in their brain. So the main chemical that's produced is called dopamine, and there's also other things like serotonin, adrenaline, encephalins, and other neurochemicals like that.
So those are all naturally occurring in the body.
They're all naturally occurring. And your brain dopamine is a neurochemical that modulates a feeling of euphoria or a high kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can almost go into a trance-like state. So therapists call that the altered state, right?
Okay.
So when people view online pornography or sexual material online in any format, you can even these changes can even be produced by listening to erotic material or reading erotic material. And so when you're reading erotic material, usually you're also imagining in your mind what you're reading, and this produces chemical changes in your brain. So you might be listening and thinking like, okay, so what? Well, the thing is that the chemical changes in your brain are mood altering and create a sense of euphoria.
Uh-huh.
This makes it very what we call salient to your brain, meaning your brain remembers this experience and wants to repeat it.
I'm glad you gave us a little definition because I was thinking, what the heck is salient to your brain?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example is food. So let's say I lay out I bring you in my kitchen and I lay it on my counter. Carrot sticks, chicken, an apple, and chocolate fudge decadent caramel with cheesecake. Okay?
I
don't know about you.
I like where you're going here.
Okay? But my brain, through no conscious decision of my own, will lock onto the cheesecake. Why? Because it's salient to my brain. Why? Because it remembers that a long time ago, I ate cheesecake and it produced chemical changes in my body because of the fat and the sugar being metabolized. And food also affects dopamine and serotonin levels.
So I'm just going to interject here because I can relate to this so well. I was taking my child to his orchestra practice yesterday, and all I could think of in the car as I pass, the grocery store and Shoppers Drug Mart, and we've just stuffed down our dinner and run at the door. All I want is an ice cream bar. And I have this overwhelming desire to go get an ice cream bar. Meanwhile, I'm trying to cut out ice cream bars.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's a great example of what happens in a porn addict's brain. So because there's something called neuroplasticity, which means that our brain is always rewiring and changing itself. Like we used to think 20 years ago that by the time you became an adult, your brain circuitry was hardwired, and that's not true. It's always being changed, right? But what's happened is a long time ago, your brain paired ice cream bar with pleasure, and it is now a salient food choice for you, and it will punish you with a craving until you satisfy yourself with the ice cream bar.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think of it as a punishment, but that craving you're saying.
Yeah, no, because it's unpleasant, right? Like it's not like you enjoy sitting there obsessing over buying an ice cream bar, and the other part of your other part's like, no, that's 450 calories, 16 grams of fat, and 30 grams of sugar, and you don't need to put that garbage into your body.
Thank you for the reminder, Paul.
Right? Okay, glad to help out, right? And ice cream is my trigger food. I'm a sugar addict as well, so I really know what I'm talking about here when I say this, right? Okay, so back to the idea that porn is an addiction. So parents need to know that if your child or teenager starts viewing online pornography consistently, they are at risk of having their brain rewired to crave that particular form of stimulation, so that it becomes very salient to their brain, and they will develop cravings for it and an obsession over getting more and more of it until it grows into a full-blown addiction.
Okay. So it's making sense to me, especially, relating it to
food.
The food, that's a craving that I can relate to. And so when do we start to be concerned. I remember talking to John Fort on the podcast, and um, he talked about the idea that when kids are first exposed to pornography, for a time that is just going to be natural curiosity and sex. So when as parents should we start to be concerned? When does it cross the line to becoming compulsive or addictive?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. And everyone, and I say this to my clients, everyone looks at porn the first time or the first few times for the same reason. It's always the same reason.
Okay.
They're curious and it's available.
Uh-huh.
Now, the thing that's changed in 2020 is we've always been curious, and there's nothing wrong with curiosity because that's how we learn.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's changed is the availability of pornography. It's gone from being, back when I was a kid or a teenager in the 80s, it's gone from something quite hard to get a hold of to being ubiquitous. It's literally everywhere,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
right? So everyone starts for the same reason. They're curious and it's available. So what parents need to realize, and I think this is a good place to start, your child will see pornography.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
Prepare them. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a matter of your child might have sex one day. They will have sex one day. Prepare them for that.
Uh-huh.
What needs to go into that decision to inform them to make proper choices? So here's the thing. In the world of pornography, there's no context, no boundaries, no explanation, no qualifying statements. And it's the parents' job to provide
what do you mean by that? No, there's no boundaries, no qualifying statement.
Well, it's like, okay, here's a category. Stepdaughter porn. Okay? So they show an older man having sex with a younger woman who is supposedly his stepdaughter.
Okay.
So it's not like there's a big disclaimer that flashes up on the screen and say, this is sick, aberrant behavior that we do not endorse that you actually follow through with in real life. And if you have a stepfather, do not think for a minute that you should be having sex with him or that it's appropriate for him to have sexual feelings toward you, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like that.
Sure.
Right? So for children and teenagers that don't have they don't have no life experience, and they don't even have the cognitive development to properly process this. And so what's going to happen, parents, if you don't start to have conversations about pornography with your children, is they are going to think that nothing is abnormal and everything is acceptable when it comes to sex. And parents, you need to be aware of the genres of porn that exist, okay? Because and this is hard. Like, I hate to tell parents, just go on Pornhub and check out the categories because I'm not going to send someone to Pornhub. But let me give you an idea, okay?
Uh-huh.
Rape porn, incest porn, stepdaughter porn, stepdad porn, family porn, teen porn, babysitter porn. You get the idea.
So really warped ideas of what sex is.
Really warped ideas,
So if I'm following you, you're saying that the line between curiosity and addiction is largely dependent on the conversations that we're willing to have with our kids.
Okay, so let me be more specific about that. The signs that your child may be developing a problem with pornography. Okay? Secrecy, like secret behavior around their phones and the computers.
Okay.
Okay? Angry and defensive when you ask to look at their devices. Angry and defensive when you limit their use of screen time or go to install a filter or put limitations on them about, how much time they can spend online or things like that. Lying to you about things. Going on their search history. Like, that's pretty straightforward. You go on their search history and you need to have a rule that their search history is never deleted, okay? And seeing what's on there. And then a big one is let's say you realize your child to watch porn, you have a conversation with them about how they need to be careful for different reasons. This can become an addiction. It presents very warped and dysfunctional views about people and about sexuality. Okay. So you have a talk and they're like, you're right. I need to stop. And then you catch them again. So you've talked to them. They agree with you to stop. And then they lie and hide and you catch them doing it again. So these are the signs that it's becoming a problem.
Well, thank you. We're going to take a break for a moment. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what to do if there's those secrecies, lying, and hiding behaviors. When parents share with me their concern over a child struggling with pornography, I always recommend they check out Fortify. Fortify is an amazing recovery tool that can help your teen learn to develop their own plan towards success. It's easy to sign up, it's designed to engage, and it's free for teens. Best of all, Fortify is science-based and has a proven track record of helping thousands of individuals find happiness by regaining their freedom from pornography. Visit joinfortify.com/Media Savvy Moms to learn more. And we're back with Paul Lavergne of Turning Point Counseling. In the first half, we talked about porn as a drug, how it reacts to the brain or the brain reacts to porn, and how to recognize whether it's curiosity that you see in your child or concerns about addiction. So in this half, wanted to talk about what to do if there are concerns about addiction or compulsions. And I'm just going to let you comment for a bit, and I have a question that I'll bring in later.
Okay. So I'm kind of thinking as you're talking, Marilyn, there's probably two groups of parents. So there's the parents whose kids are, probably teenagers and have already had phones and laptops for a while, and you haven't had a conversation with them. And then there's the ones who are, they're still young, and you're trying to figure out, how to be proactive. So I'll talk to the first group.
Okay.
So your kids are still young, and they're 8, 9, 10, and they're already asking you for a phone or a smartphone because all their friends have it. Okay, so you need to decide at what age does your child need a smartphone. So I raised 2 boys, and neither one of them had a cell phone until they were in high school, grade 9, and they never had a data plan on their cell phone because they didn't need it. What do you need a data plan for? So they weren't on all these social media sites, and they couldn't go on the internet or anything like that on their cell phones, right? And they also, there was an understanding about the rules of them having the privilege of having a phone, because it's not a right they're entitled to; it's a privilege that they earn.
Okay.
So if your kid's pre-high school and they're already wanting a cell phone, it's just up to you, obviously, but in my opinion, there's no need for that.
Younger and younger kids are with devices.
Exactly. And then, where does it stop? Like when they're 5, like, so I don't see that there's any reason for them to have a cell phone until they're at least in high school.
We've heard it said, and I think this is where you're going with it. How soon do you want your kids exposed to pornography? And giving them the cell phone means they have to make decisions about what they're going to see on that phone.
Now, having said that, it doesn't matter if they don't have a phone. Let's say they're 13 years old and they don't have a phone. It doesn't matter because their friends are going to have phones and they're going to show them.
And there's other ways to find porn.
Right. Okay. And by the way, if you let your kids sleep over at other kids' houses, in my opinion, you need to know a few things. Okay. So when they stay over, who's there and what access do they have to devices that are there? Do they have access to, like, do you know that your friends' parents don't have porn on Bell satellite TV and they're sleeping over in the basement, and when everyone's in bed, they just flick it on and start watching hardcore porn? Yeah. It's right there. Like if you don't know that, you're not thinking hard enough about this, and you're not paying attention. Because I've been in private practice for 9.5 years, and I've heard many ways that people have been exposed to pornography.
So you're
But,
telling us from the experiences that you've had in your office, so the stories that have been told,
right,
why we should be concerned about devices and sleepovers, etc.
right. So sleepovers is a big one. Being shown porn by friends is a big one. Finding the friend's dad's collection. So back in the day, it was magazines. Now it would be DVDs or, well, it was VHS. Remember those, the older people in the
Mhm.
audience? Or now it's DVDs. Okay. So do you know that your friend's dad doesn't have a porn DVD collection that your child is now staying up watching?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're sitting there going like, oh my gosh, this is way too awkward a conversation. I don't care how awkward a conversation this is. This can be the difference between protecting your child from the harm that porn can cause them and developing a lifelong addiction that they could struggle with for the next 30 years and maybe burn through a couple of marriages in the process. Because I'm not overstating this. This is what happens.
He's not
So
overstating this, people.
yeah, so I guess the message is think about these things and pay attention. So for our boys, like we knew the parents, we trusted them, we had a good feeling about that. Generally think but
Generally think
there's
but
nothing wrong with saying, hey, my kid's sleeping over. I just want to make sure that, they don't have unfiltered access to the internet while they're there.
you know,
Can you keep an eye
hey,
on it?
and this might be a relief to the other parent.
Right.
I've had my kids invited to a birthday party when they were younger, and the mom told me everything that was going to happen at that party. And I said, "Thank you so much. Like, thank you for telling me. I am
Yeah.
so appreciative of that." And then I started doing that when I had kids come over to my house. I let other parents know exactly what was going on. In this day and age, I think that's really a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the second group of like, okay, your kid's already in high school and he already has a phone. Okay. You need to think about the fact that your child has unlimited access to the most vile, perverted, degrading, explicit, hardcore sexual acts that you can possibly imagine. And with that in mind, do you have a filter installed on the device? And if not, why not?
Mhm.
Because if you don't, you're just negligent as a parent. Okay. So you need to find something like Net Nanny, Covenant Eyes, Accountable to You. There's a bunch of different devices. I like Covenant Eyes. I think they're good. And they're a great resource as well, by the way. Just if you go to covenanteyes.com, they're a great resource.
Good.
And a conversation with your kid about, look, there's this, porn is out there. I know about it. Okay.
Hmm.
So like kids need to know, mom and dad know
Uh-huh.
there's porn out there. Because like we don't think of our parents as people, they're mom
No.
and dad and they're dumb and they don't know anything, right? You got to put yourself in your teenager's headspace.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with my kids where I've said, "No, look, I get it. I get what's there.
Yeah,
I've, I've read the articles. I know what you can be exposed to."
right,
And that actually helped them open up a little more and be
right.
willing to talk to me about it. Hmm.
Okay, and I think this is the most important thing. Do not come across as judgmental, angry, shaming, any of those things, because your kid will shut down and hide this from you. Okay.
Hmm.
And I always told my boys, like, look, I know you're going to see porn, and explain that this is why you need to stay away from it. And you need to make up your mind about your relationship to pornography. So the relationship that I encourage you to have is zero tolerance in my life.
Hmm.
Okay. Because it's about your relationship to porn, like our relationship to food. Food is there and we're never going to get away from it. But do we eat to nurture our bodies, or do we eat for comfort or boredom or gluttony, or like there's lots of bad reasons to eat food.
Yeah, but
And
there's no good reason to consume porn.
there's no good reason to consume porn. Okay. So you've seen it. I know you're curious. There it is. Once you've seen a couple of naked people, you've kind of seen it all. That's it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, you need to be careful because there's things called perversion, depravity, abuse, objectification, misogyny, and you explain those things. Treating women as sex objects, exploitation, human trafficking and prostitution. Explain those things to your kid, right? And if you don't know how porn, prostitution, and human trafficking relate to each other, then go do some research. Yeah. And maybe you guys have talked about it on the podcast.
As you said before, Pornhub isn't going to give them that information.
No. And Pornhub right now there's a petition going around with like 300,000 signatures because people have finally had it where it's unequivocally proven that there's child pornography and trafficked videos of drugged and raped and trafficked people on Pornhub, and they don't care.
They don't.
The only thing that's going to work is financial consequences or legal consequences. Okay. So anyway, I don't want to get too off topic on that. But approach your child with the starting point is, hey, son, daughter, I want you to know I know about this. This is the world we live in. Okay. And I want you to know that you can always come to me. And if you ever see anything online that upsets or disturbs you or that's sexual, you come and tell me and let's talk about how to deal with this.
Great. So Paul warned me that he could talk on this subject for hours, and I would love to continue this conversation. So we will have to invite Paul back, understanding that we don't have a lot of time to go into depth on this, but what resources are available?
So there's some great websites. So I mentioned Fight the New Drug, and they actually have a free program called Fortify. And it's for teenagers, youth. I think it's like 16 to 25 or something. And if they're having a struggle with porn, they can sign up for this program. And there's some lessons and exercises and things like that. Covenant Eyes is a great website. Yeah. And then there's another one called Culture Reframe. And this is great for parents to really educate. This is more for parents to educate themselves about what's really going on out there in the world of online pornography. Okay? Your Brain on Porn is another great website, and this has a lot of the scientific data because the studies now, the evidence is overwhelming about how porn changes your brain, creates addiction, causes all kinds of problems for people. And it's being scientifically validated by the research. Like, these things aren't my opinion. And I'm not like some kind of prudish, moralistic, anti-porn crusader that thinks sex is bad. Like, not for a minute. I think sex is great, which is why I hate porn, because porn's ruining sex, right? It's taking something that should be relational and connected, and it's making it detached and objectified. So the other thing would be, there are therapists out there like myself, or any therapist that is trained in dealing with compulsive sexual behaviors, but they need the designation CSAT or AASAT. I'm an ASAT. That just means that we've been actually trained in dealing with this stuff. And I don't care where you live. Like, I have clients all over the place because I do, like, we're on a video call right now, having a great conversation. And so I've done that. And I've had parents come to me with their 16-year-old and, there's a problem, and we do some video chats and
that's good
check
to know,
in.
because I think a lot of times parents don't know where to turn, that maybe there's only resources for adults. So I didn't realize that you also met with teenagers, older teenagers.
Well, I don't work with teenagers generally in my practice, except on this issue.
Okay.
Because it's near and dear to my heart, and so I make an exception. I have a few teenagers I work with, like in my private practice, that come in and see me. But on this issue, I will work with teenagers. And by the way, this isn't just a guy problem.
Yeah.
It's very much the fastest growing demographic of porn users is females 18 to 25.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to end there. So I'm going to turn the time back over to Melody. She's going to give us a quick recap. And then
Oh, and then the challenge.
You're going to leave us with a challenge.
Okay.
Thanks so much for joining us, Paul. It's been great to have you on, and I definitely think we need to have you back. We have so many more questions to ask you. All right, so just a quick recap, some of the highlights. Paul's been talking to us about how porn addiction is the fastest growing addiction in the world. He talked to us a little bit about how there are two different kinds of addictions, substance addictions and process addictions. And part of the reason that pornography addiction is such a powerful one is because it is both. Because it creates an addiction because people are addicted to the process of finding pornography, and also because it releases substances inside the body that create an experience that is salient to the brain. It's something that we remember and we're addicted to going back to. He also talked about how there's the same reason for everybody to look at porn the first time. It's because they're curious and it's available. And curiosity is natural and human and has been going on since the beginning of time. The thing that has changed is that it is so available. Pornography is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. It is saturated in our society. And then he answered our big burning question today. What are some of the signs that our child is becoming addicted and it's becoming a big problem? And he told us it's when our kids are becoming angry and defensive. They're lying. We obviously go look in their search history. And most specifically, if we've had a talk, they agree to stop and then we keep catching them again. And then he went through some great resources for parents, some of which you may have recognized that we talk about on the show a lot. Fight the New Drug, Covenant Eyes, and Fortify, both of which were affiliates. And we will put links to, and we'll put links to all of the resources that he lists: Culture Reframed, Your Brain on Porn. And he also mentioned to find therapists like him who are trained in compulsive sexual behaviors that can reach out and help you if you need help with your child. So I'll turn the time back over.
All right, Paul, let's have that challenge.
Okay. So parents, I want to challenge you. This is the challenge. Develop a specific and intentional proactive policy for your child or teenager on their use of electronic devices and social media accounts. So smartphones, computers, tablets, whatever it is that you have in the house. And have a conversation with them about the dangers and risks and harms of pornography, and challenge them to have a zero tolerance policy for it in their life in a non-shaming, non-judgmental, non-angry way, and make it clear to them that the door is always open for them to come and talk to you. And if you feel like you still don't quite understand the implications of this, or you feel awkward, you educate yourself and avail yourself of the resources out there, because we cannot afford to be willfully blind or ignorant or minimize this problem anymore.
Awesome. I love that idea of helping your teen or child create a zero tolerance policy.
Right.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to maybe coming back again.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, remember to subscribe. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, or email us directly at mediasavvymoms@gmail.com. We'd love to get your feedback.